And just like that, the 2024 NFL Draft has come and gone. Welcome back, guys. I'm Lauren Koval, joined by the lovely and talented Tyler Drake.
Ooh, I like the adjectives. Thank you for that.
Of course. And you were boots on the ground in Detroit for this year's NFL Draft. Before we dive into what the Cardinals did this year, what was it like to be there for the first round?
Well, just like it was in KC, definitely a mecca for NFL fans enjoying the sport, enjoying their team. And it's like, honestly, it feels like one of those times where everyone just is happy the NFL is around. It's not like, oh, you know, you're a Seahawks fan, you're a Niners fan, you're a Cardinals fan, you're a Rams fan. No, it's like, we're here, the future's now, let's get this done. Like, it's really cool to see that camaraderie. And then, holy cow, Detroit, they killed it. Absolutely. If anybody's listening from Detroit, you guys killed it, because it was absolutely jam-packed, blew KC out of the water, in my opinion. And not only that, just logistically, everything was where you kind of wanted it to be, where you needed it to be. You can get places and not feel like you're getting overran by a mob or something like that. And obviously, they had to shut down the gates like an hour and a half before the draft even started. That's how packed it was. Day 2 was packed. Day 3 was packed. I haven't seen the exact numbers yet, but I'm going to assume it's probably close, if not breaking a record at some point. And yeah, just holy cow. Just a whirlwind. I think I got there about 4 o'clock the day before, got some stuff done, got into the city the next morning, and then from there it was just nothing but draft. I got to talk to Marvin Harrison Jr., Darius Robinson right after they were drafted in the first round. Really, really great conversations with those guys. You can catch that on YouTube, by the way, Cardinals Corner, Arizona Sports. And yeah, you could tell very much that same blueprint of, we need guys that are just want to be football players, want to be team first, want to really show their work ethic and really lead by example almost. And, you know, flew right back after that. I don't think I got much more than an hour and a half of sleep, and that was on the plane before the turbulence hit. Landed back day 2, went straight to the interviews, went straight into day 2 at the facility, and then day 3 to wrap it up. So we're here. Still some sleep I could probably get, but we are here, and it was exciting. It was a fun time. Always fun to be able to get out there and be boots on the ground, like you said. But yeah, now we're here, and we've got 12 draft picks to talk about. I didn't expect it to be 12, and I really didn't expect there to be 2 first-rounders, if I'm being honest.
No, so let's jump right into that. We made our predictions last week about where we thought the Cardinals were going to go with their 2 first-round picks. Let's talk about the one that I think everybody is, I would say, universally excited about as a Cardinals fan, in Marvin Harrison Jr. For me, personally, that's exactly who I wanted them to have. I think the fan base will agree that's exactly who they wanted to have. What did you learn from Marvin during that meeting that you had with him?
One of the big things I learned, and this is something maybe not a lot of football fans are thinking about, the way he held himself in these interviews. I honestly, in his the scouting combine interview, I think his dad was with him, and you know, they were together. He was saying a lot of the things. Man, Marvin Harrison Jr., he's quiet, but he knows what he says. He's thoughtful in what he says. Very excited dude. I loved being able to, our follow-up from Paris. It was like, we got to make sure we ask that question. And he had a great answer. He's like, I watched the Cardinals growing up. Larry Fitzgerald was the guy. So seeing that and being able to, put that all together was very, very interesting on that side of it. And then just, you could tell almost like when you stand next to those guys, you stand next to a Larry Fitzgerald, you kind of just almost feel that greatness a little bit. That's kind of what you feel with this guy. And it's super early. Don't get me wrong, super early. He's got to go out there and show that he's that guy, but just kind of the way he holds himself, you can tell this dude is no nonsense. He's ready to really take this league by storm.
I know that Gannon had said directly after they drafted him that night, because I was here afterwards cutting up some of that audio, and he had said he's all business. He's ready to just get out there, get out on the field, and prove himself, and it seems like that is exactly the kind of energy that this team needs and what he's bringing to this team.
Yeah, I mean, the whole skipping the combine, skipping the pro day, focusing on making sure he can avoid the rookie wall as best as he can. Like, that's really what his mindset was. Being able to have an offseason before you're an NFL player could do wonders. I mean, Michael Wilson, we've talked to him. We've talked to these rookies. Like, after the draft, it's just, you're still going. There's no time. There's no time after the last college game to start of the season. You are constantly on the run. So Marvin having this time to really rejuvenate himself and really get a better understanding of what he needs to do at the NFL level, keep learning from his dad. I mean, there's no doubt in my mind that he's going to come out and hit the ground running as their number 1 wideout.
And I think that your point about Michael Wilson is sort of an interesting one because you can easily compare and contrast their seasons. Wilson coming in last year, not having a healthy Kyler Murray, not having a true offseason with his quarterback, is going to be the exact opposite from Marvin Harrison Jr. I mean, there's already so much excitement surrounding him. You're going to have a healthy Kyler Murray, and that way he can practice during training camp, during these off-season workouts with him. How much do you think that's going to aid in making him truly that wide receiver one for this team?
Yeah, it's going to be huge. I think any work with Kyler is going to be good work because I think everybody knows he's the undisputed number one guy there. And it's like Trey McBride's already said, I think Trey's already working with Kyler some and just seeing that kind of growth from that standpoint. I mean, Trey, let's be real, he didn't get that luxury of having a full offseason with Kyler, and look what he did. So imagine what he can do on top of bringing those guys with him, because I think Trey's going to be a good guy of, hey man, this is kind of how Kyler operates. Like, obviously they've all got to work together, but I think Trey can also give him those insider tips of, hey man, this is, you got to stop here because when we were in the Atlanta Falcon game, I went here and we threw a pick six and something like that. So I think that way Trey's going to be a huge voice for these guys. Even though he's listed as a tight end, he's going to be a big part, I think, of these pass catchers moving forward, these young guys moving forward.
And that's a relatively young room for the Cardinals when you look at it, the tight end room. I mean, we'll get to it, but the Cardinals also just drafted a tight end.
Yep.
And there's a lot of young wide receivers in that room and a lot of young talent. And I think that could be something that's more exciting for Marvin Harrison Jr. to come in and really start to make that room his own and sort of automatically feel comfortable in a room like that.
Yeah, and I mean, it's like what Paris said. He brings people along with him. When he was out on the jugs machine doing stuff by himself one day at Ohio State, the next 2 or 3 days he's bringing wide receivers and quarterbacks and all these. Like, I think we're going to see that kind of movement happen here. Maybe not so much. We won't be able to see it as much, but I think we're going to hear a lot about it from these, not only just the rookies, but I think from veterans too.
And finishing out the first round, the Cardinals with the 27th overall pick decided to go with an edge out of Mizzou, Darius Robinson. He wasn't somebody that I think a lot of people had their eye on very early on. He was mocked to the Cardinals a few times, and sort of with all the excitement surrounding the possibility of trades. I know we even talked about, will they draft at 27, or is this a pick that they move on from? They ended up going with Darius Robinson. What did you learn about him?
Man, well, first of all, I got to say Chop was who I was thinking at 27. But my thinking at 35, that's where I really thought maybe Darius would be. So I still thought there was a good potential that he could come and be a Cardinal, but I didn't really expect it to be at 27. So I think for me, and I'm going back to Chop, because once I saw that name come off the board, I'm like, all right, what is going to really happen here? And Darius was a name. I think at the Senior Bowl, he really caught my eye and just on what he did, and I think he caught a lot of people's eyes too. But it was really cool talking to him, because not only was it a big moment, he was, I think, the last guy who was present in Detroit of the prospects.
Okay, yeah.
And not only that, it was his hometown state. Like, that's his home state. So being able to do that, being with all of his family members, that was such a cool thing. Just, you could just see it when I just mentioned, like, who's here with you, man? And just giant smile, ready to go. And the big thing that I learned from him, I said, man, what are the intangibles? What's your number one thing? And I was thinking like violence, something like this. No, man, team first. I want to make everybody around me better. Like, I want to be that guy. Like, in that right there, price of admission, Jonathan Gannon always talks about it. He fits that bill to a T. And it's just very impressive to see kind of the same thinking that's going into all these players, because that's one thing you can say. It's almost boring, because when these guys come and talk to you, it's like, saying the same stuff, team first mentality, adaptability, versatility, like all of that. And that's the other thing with Darius too. Who knows where exactly he's going to play? He could play on the inside, he could play on the outside. It's that they really could move him all over the place and really utilize him in multiple spots.
His positional versatility is something that's really intriguing, because the Cardinals have a lot of gaps specifically on that line, and where exactly are they going to plug and play him? And they have a lot of options too. And he's young. You can mold him in this offense to fit, exactly where you want him to be.
Yep.
Also, do you think that with the weirdness that was sort of the first round of the NFL draft. Even though there weren't a lot of trades, there weren't a lot of moves, there were some unexpected. My mind immediately goes to the Atlanta Falcons drafting Penix. That was some weirdness. Do you think because of the run on offensive players that the Cardinals were able to get Robinson earlier?
Yeah, I think so, because and you've got to think, I think it also was, you start seeing, all right, cornerbacks are going, edge rushers probably going to start going. So I think it just was kind of a perfect storm of offensives going, kind of see cornerback, kind of see a little maybe edge rusher, kind of tilting, like let's go get the guy now and let's go forward. And I think just with that pick, it almost seemed like they knew he was their guy the whole way. It wasn't, I don't think it was a reach by any means, but I think some people kind of viewed him as more of a high second round guy, whereas I think he worked himself into the first round. That's just kind of where I thought. I mean, like I just said, I thought he would have been more of a 35 guy, but 27, make sure you get your guy. If you really are that, obsessed with that kind of player, go get him. I mean, he checks the boxes from what I talked to him about and how he relayed himself of being that team first guy. He checks all the boxes that they want.
And the first round was really the Cardinals going out and immediately filling two positions of need. They needed a wide receiver. They needed an edge rusher. And it seemed like, knowing that, they really targeted, yes, these are positions that we need, but also they're players who value the same thing that we do. We've talked about how important this draft is for Gannon and Monty to get right, specifically because this is still a very new regime. I feel like we've talked about them so much that it goes over your head like, oh yeah, of course, it's fine.
Yeah.
But they really needed to nail this. And I would say, in the first round, if we were going to grade them out, I would give them an A for what they were able to do. Yeah,
easily, because they came away with two blue chip players that can instantly come in and make an impact. And I think that's really the name of the game right now. I think they're on to this next phase, and now it's not so much about getting stockpiles of draft picks. It's about actually getting the talent in the room to just get going.
I think if there's anything that sort of stood out to Cardinals fans watching the draft in general, or something that maybe, I don't want to say is controversial, but something that I think rubbed a few Cardinals fans the wrong way, was them deciding to trade back in the second round and watching a run on cornerbacks go and go and go. Eventually they end up with cornerbacks Max Melton out of Rutgers.
Yep.
I know that Monty came out after the draft and said that they actually had him rated higher than some of the other cornerbacks we've talked about on here, higher than a Mitchell, higher than a Cooper DeJean. What did you think of their decision to go with Max Melton?
Yeah, I mean, I think cornerback was absolutely the way to go. I was a little surprised just with the names that you mentioned, like, oh yeah, man, DeJean's still right there. But I think for what they want, I think Max Melton fits it better. I think he could be one of those guys you can throw on the outside, where I think they have their guy in Garrett Williams as a nickel. And I think that would be more where DeJean would be. That being said, I think you could probably move DeJean around a little bit. I think he's versatile, but I think Melton gives you that, that potential. You could maybe call him a lockdown corner. He calls himself that. He prides himself that. He prides himself on being able to move throughout the formation. But I think you can have him on one side. You can have Sean Murphy-Bunting. Then you bring in Garrett Williams. If you want to roll in a Starling Thomas, a Keitrell Clark, any of those guys in there too. Any of the other rookies too. But previous rookies, the guys, you know what I'm saying. Or no, the rookies from this past draft. Yes, 3 of them. But I think Melton does give you that extra potential of maybe filling out that cornerback room. It's a young guy. I think we all can agree that maybe we thought some more experience to the room would be good. Murphy Bunting definitely does that, but I still think if you could go out and get maybe one more vet, something around those areas, maybe just to be a guy who can be another voice, that could go a long way.
Is there a vet that you have your eye on?
Not necessarily right now. Not necessarily. I'd probably have to look a little bit closer, but I just think maybe filling out one more spot. And I know there's a lot of positions, like there's a lot of cornerbacks in that room now.
Yeah.
So it might not work, but I guess it also depends on how much of a leader Murphy Bunting can be. And he seems like he likes to have that role. So maybe they do have that, and maybe I'm just overlooking it.
So cornerback will definitely be a position and a room to keep an eye on as we move closer and closer to the season. With that being said, outside of the guys that they took 1, 2, 3 in this year's draft, who excites you the most? Who do you have your eye on?
Ooh, I'm gonna say Illinois tight end Tip Reiman, and I think I've got it right.
Yes,
he's a Reiman.
Yes,
that's the guy. I really like. Just not. Let's say like his stats aren't great, didn't get the ball a ton, but what he brings to the team and what he kind of means for what this team wants to do moving forward says a lot, and I think shows a lot about, they want to run the ball. They want to make sure they've got tight ends out there. They want to make sure they've got blockers out there. James Conner's getting this rock a lot. The running game's going to get this ball a lot, or get the rock a lot. Kyler Murray's going to get the ball a lot. Like, this is setting up, and not even just Reiman. I mean, his old teammate and Isaiah Adams too. I mean, these guys, they're building for the run game. And if he can really get it together and be that blocking tight end, like let's say a Jeff Swaim Jr., you can do that. Give yourself a little more athleticism. I know Ron Wolfley's been talking about Max Williams. You can be the Max Williams to the Trey McBride. Like, that offense could really do wonders. And I think Wolf's 100% accurate with this. 12 personnel, the Cardinals probably are going to lead the way there. And I think we also have to think about Elijah Higgins too, because he could be another guy that can give you a lot of athleticism. So I'm really intrigued by what Tip can bring to the team just from a blocking standpoint, running standpoint, but he also does look like he's got the game to where if they've got to do a security blanket type thing, like he might be able to do it for you too there. So I'm very interested not only just on him and how they use him. I mean, who knows? Maybe they move him to a fullback too. They can move this guy around a lot. And I think he loves the fact that he can block people. He loves putting people on the ground. He says that the Lord gave him the ability, so he feels like he's honoring him by doing that. And I thought that was just like that's one of the best quotes of the draft class by far. So you get a guy that loves to do that in an offense that is predicated on running the football. If he can translate early, holy cow. This could be a even more fun offense that we're even thinking about with Marvin Harrison already.
And they asked Tip directly after he was drafted, why do you like blocking? Why do you value blocking? And he said, because I like mauling someone.
People, yes.
And that is like, that's quintessentially Jonathan Gannon.
Yep.
Is violence, mauling, and playing hard, because Reiman is not your pass-catching tight end. No. He's not going to do that. If anything, that's where I think Higgins is more useful, is he'll be sort of your pass catcher while Ryman's, setting a block. He's very big, he's very athletic, and for his size, he's incredibly quick. And I think that that's something where you'll see him blocking, 2 to 5 yards downfield and just absolutely
running somebody out of bounds.
Exactly, like absolutely bodying somebody. And that is such a position in that 12 personnel scheme that I think the Cardinals are now leaning towards playing with this draft.
I got a funny story I got to tell you about Tip too. So we go through the conference call with him, and it's great. Explains his nickname or his name. That's his real name, Tip. Got it from his grandfather. So we get off the call and everything. We start doing our work, start sending the audio and everything to you guys, and like a minute and a half goes by, and all of a sudden we hear somebody on the conference call, and it's Tip. He didn't hang up. He thought he still needed to do something, so he goes, "You guys need anything else?" And everyone just starts laughing. Like, we're like, holy cow, man. Like, why would you stay on? He's like, oh, man, I just like to stick around. I'm sticky. Like, I'm just ready to get going. Like, you could just tell the dude was just so amped to be able to say, like, I'm a Cardinal and I'm going to go show everybody that I don't need to catch the ball. I'm going to go put somebody in the ground. Like, it was so funny. It was such a, like, one of those moments of like, yeah, this dude just loves ball.
He just lives and breathes football. I know that he was also getting a lot of attention because during the combine earlier this year, he did say that he believes birds are fake.
I think it came back out that was a joke.
Yes, it did. Okay. And I posted that on Twitter because I went, this is going to get so much attention, and let's just clear the air. He said that he wanted to be fun and lighthearted, and that this was his idea of being fun and lighthearted.
Well, he was definitely memorable.
Yes. It's definitely attached a bunch of people to him, but I think he's a very exciting guy, a very interesting personality, and that tight end room has become sort of a very funny, interesting dynamic of personality specifically. Yeah.
What? Okay. Enough about my guy though. Who you like? Who's your most intriguing one though?
Mine is Trey Benson.
That's
running
a good
back,
one.
Florida State. The reason
NFL comp.
That's what I felt like. NFL comp. I saw his NFL comp is Breece Hall.
Oh, wow.
I know it. Yes.
Dang.
I came prepared
Good
to
stuff.
pod. But why he intrigues me is not only him as a player, but it is the running back room in general. Because we know that James Conner is so firmly running back number one.
Yep.
Everybody loves him. He's not only running back number one, he's leader number one for the Cardinals. And he's a guy that we've constantly heard different rookies come in and out and be like, well, I talked to James Conner. And that's so valued beyond anything else, which I think is interesting, is that I almost want to compare it to like a DJ Humphries, Paris Johnson Jr. situation where DJ knew that he was training Paris to take over.
Okay.
He was like, I know that you're going to take my spot one day, but I'm going to do everything that I can. I'm interested to watch the dynamic between Conner and Benson because he could one day take James Conner's job. He is older. But I'm interested to see how that dynamic works because when Conner was out last year, we talked a lot about they're doing running back by committee. We're confused by who's getting carries over other people. There were some games where, Ingram was getting a lot of carries. Okay, well, that didn't work out.
No.
So let's go with DeMercado and see if that works out. So I'm interested to see what it turns out like with Benson. He is a very physical runner. Watching his highlights, I'm going to lower my shoulder and just
hit you.
Yes, absolutely. Which I think is, once again, bringing it all back to this idea of that's what the Arizona Cardinals are trying to do, is be a lot more physical, beat you down, run-focused kind of team. And with that, I'm interested to see what Trey can do.
Yeah, and I'm interested to see kind of the dynamic with him and Michael Carter because I think we all assumed that it's Conner, Michael Carter's your change of pace. I still think that's probably the case, but Benson could very well come in there and challenge. And the cool thing about it is that those two already have kind of a relationship. They've already spent some time together. It was funny when we were talking to him on the conference call. He's like, "Yeah, I got to get off the phone and call Michael back because like he was calling me and I couldn't answer." It's going to be interesting to see. I think it's going to be another tight knit group, but yeah, it'll be in training camp. I'll be very, very, very eyes are going to be wide open to see how that dynamic in the room kind of shakes out behind Conner for sure.
And we know that Gannon and Monty really like playing their rookies directly after they draft them, whether they really liked them and their hand was a little bit forced last year because of injuries to play these young guys. There's definitely a lot to keep your eye on during training camp this year.
Competition.
And with that, what holes do you think this team still has, and what positions are you still keeping an eye on, either if they need to add somebody, if you think there's going to be changes there, or if you think there's a little bit of a weakness in this group?
Okay. I think they've got to nail down who their left guards are going to be. Honestly, I think we know that Paris is probably going to make the move to left. You move over Jonah Williams to the right. Is that a John Gaines? That's a name that nobody's really talked about. Evan Brown seems like a leader in the clubhouse, but also, does he challenge Yelda for the center spot? And I don't know. And the thing with that, I think there's going to be I think they want to keep continuity. So I would say Yelda has his job there. But the left guard spot's going to be something very interesting for me. I think they have the talent there to fill it. I think, again, like we were saying with cornerback, I think adding another veteran there might be a good sign. Edge rusher, I think it's really somebody's got to take it. Somebody's got to take the job. Somebody's really got to be that number one guy for this team. I think there's enough candidates, but somebody's got to show up and grab it and keep it and be consistent with it. Like Dennis Gardeck led the team with 6 sacks. 6 sacks can't lead the team this year. Like there's enough talent that's brought in from this past year or this offseason that isn't good enough. You've got to be able to be better than that, and you've got to that should be 3rd or 4th on the list. Like there should be double-digit sacks on this team. They've addressed enough positions, enough places on the defense where I think the talent deficiency isn't as deep. There's still some air. Like obviously, I think it's really about playing with each other now. I think it's really coming down to, can you be a cohesive unit moving forward? Because like there's not that absolute world beater. There's Kaiser White and Budda Baker on the line. You can really make a case for who do you think is going to be the best player on that team. So I think that's where I'm kind of looking to is who's really going to take that interior defensive line and who is really going to be that number one pass rusher that's going to take everybody else with them.
And for me, exactly what you said about edge has kind of nailed it. that's up for the taking. It's just who's going to step up to the plate and be the leader there. And that's something I'm going to keep my eye on heading into training camp and at the beginning of the season, because it could be a position that kind of rotates. Who is going to be one? Who's going to step up to the plate? And we'll keep seeing as the season goes on. Anything else you'd like to add about this year's draft or your time in Detroit?
I don't think so. I think Detroit style pizza is top tier.
Did you get some pizza while you were there?
Yes, I went to Jet's Pizza,
Okay.
which I was told is like a very well-known pizza place down there, and that was the closest to the hotel, so it all worked out. So we were good, and yes, very good. Wish I could have some more, but it was a quick but long trip.
I have some good news for you then.
What?
There are Jet's Pizzas here.
No, it's not the same though.
Well, it's not the same, but
No.
if you're really craving some,
Okay.
they're around the valley.
Well, at least I know that.
Yes.
Thank you.
Of course. All right. Well, thank you guys for tuning in to another episode of Cardinals Corner. You can subscribe, rate 5 stars to our podcast online, and follow us on Twitter as well at AZ Cards Corner. Me at Koval_Lauren. Tyler?
At T Drake for Sports.
Perfect. And follow along at ArizonaSports.com as well. We're going to be publishing a lot of different content about the draft coming up with a lot of different angles and different things to focus on.
Yes.
So thank you guys so much for joining us for another episode of Cardinals Corner.